welcome everyone to our event today with Max Hope and Lynette Green. Learning and Being in Action, with a question mark. A conversation about using psychodrama as a tool for person-centred education. What a fascinating title. So, a warm welcome to you, Max.
Thank you.
And to you too, Lynette. It's really lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
And you're both going to be facilitating a workshop, I guess, through the Northern School of Psychodrama in the not too distant future. So you've also agreed to come and do an interview with us tonight. But before we get into all that stuff, because we're online here and all in a virtual environment, maybe I could ask you to give us a sense of where you're located geographically. Lynette, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can rip my dry tongue from the roof of my mouth. I think that I could do that.
Yes.
So I'm in the East Riding of Yorkshire, so about 10 miles from the sea, and it's been sunnier towards the end of the day, but it's chilly.
Yeah, so it's still very early spring, I guess.
It is, yeah, but there's a lot more light in the sky, which is really full of possibility and hope, I think.
Fantastic. Yes, it's certainly moving in the right direction for us here in the UK. Yeah. How about you, Max? Where are you located?
I'm in Hull, which is also in East Yorkshire. For those people who haven't been here, it's a city in the northeast of England. It's not a tourist destination, but I like it nonetheless. I've lived here a long time.
So you're very settled in that part of the country, Max?
Yeah, I am. I am settled very much. Yeah. Come to Hull, everyone. It's great.
That sounds like a wonderful invitation. Yes. And would it also be lovely to hear a little bit about kind of the work that you both do, just to give us a kind of context for what we'll be talking about tonight. Lynette, can I ask you first? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose that my background's in the voluntary sector, so most of my working life I've worked with groups of women, and after that I ran a counselling service for young people in the city centre community project, and did lots of group work, and I just became really interested in young people who are really marginalised and trying to find ways of encouraging them to find a voice. And I suppose that's when I kind of encountered person-centred approach, really, and did some training and trained as a person-centred counsellor. And these days I work in private practice. I work for a number of organisations fostering, and I do a bit of work in a prison, and I just do some bits of group work. I run groups, and I also am one of the trainers in the Northern School of Psychodrama, and we run training events for people interested in person-centred approach, psychodrama, and other kind of the interface between different approaches, I suppose. So it's part of where my passion lies, is the possibility of groups, and I just love the whole business of groups offering us a huge wealth of things for ourselves and others. You know, the potentials of groups are just really thrilling for me.
Yes, it sounds like you've got a lot of experience in that, in being in the group, and of course you work really hard in the Northern School of Psychodrama as part of that organisation, and to offer a training experience there too. Thank you, Max. How about you?
Well, my background has largely been in the voluntary community sector as well, working with young people in particular. Now, my background is not as a therapist. I work as an educator, really. And for a long time, I worked with socially excluded young people to try and re-engage them in education. And that was actually where I worked with Lynette. So we've known each other for 15, 16 years, and we've worked together very closely in that kind of work. I, through that, became familiar with the person-centred approach, and I did some training at Temenos, and I'm particularly interested in the person-centred approach and its wider applications. So the things I'm most interested in is the person-centred approach to leadership and to organisations, and also to education. So 2007, I actually left the community and voluntary sector and started doing a PhD, which was about democratic education, which, although that doesn't sound the same as person-centred education, for me there's a lot of overlap. And since that, I've kind of meandered and ended up working as an academic at the University of Hull, which is in the education faculty. So I try to lever in person-centred education into what I do at the university, although it's not all about that. They certainly don't employ me as a person-centred educator, but I get away with what I can, and then try and do person-centred stuff outside of that as well. So the opportunity to work with Lynette at the Northern School of Psychodrama is just fantastic for me, because we get to combine kind of my passion for education, Lynette's passion for psychodrama, and a great deal of experience in working together over the years as well. So I think it should be. Well, I think it'll be great for me. Whether it will be great for people coming, I don't know. We'll see. But that's kind of how I ended up where I am today.
Oh, well, we've got a bit of feedback in the chat room saying someone saying that they've read your PhD and found it very, very interesting. So,
no, that must be Bill, because he's probably the only person who's read it. Oh yes, it is Bill.
It is Bill. You can see that, yes.
Hello, Bill.
So you've definitely got a fan of your work here in the chat room, which is fantastic. So I guess the workshop that you have planned, Saz has put the link in the chat room. One of the reasons it's come about is both of your passion for person-centred education, a learning which can be quite different from what a lot of us experienced in school, I guess, and even can be countercultural to the dominant educational paradigm, I guess, or the way that education is offered in institutions even now. And the opportunity to have psychodrama support that and challenge it, and to create that environment too. I know I'm just saying something. I wonder. I don't know if that's sparking something off in you. Or
well, I guess for me, it reminds me that Rogers described person-centred education and traditional education as being two different ends of a continuum, and I find that a very, very helpful analogy, really. Particularly as now I am working within a very traditional organisational structure as a university, and I am reminded of how different person-centred education is every day, really, in terms of putting people above structures, rather than being so wedded to a system and wedded to having to do things according to the book, which often actually does devalue people. Whereas the person-centred approach is very much about working with individuals, about where they're at and what they're interested in, and working with them in the way that they will be most engaged. So it's very different to traditional education. And I know at the Northern School of Psychodrama, one of the reasons I'm very keen to do some work is that as an organisation, they are very interested in becoming a person-centred organisation and a person-centred educational organisation, which is again very unusual for organisations to choose to structure themselves in that way.
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging climate for all of us, really. I mean, I suppose that there's something about the education field it's true of, but I suppose I know more about training therapists, and there's something about how terrifying the structure, the responses to change and uncertainty and anxieties about ensuring safe and good practice, that there's something about is a very structural approach rather than a functional approach. And I think it's a struggle, and I can feel it in myself when we're trying to find ways of managing to meet UKCP needs or the needs of our member organisation. It's a real tension, there's something about really, because it could be really easy to miss students, and we're a small organisation.